Hello, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Great, thank you. Good evening, it's great to be here with you all. Thank you for taking the time to be with us tonight. We are excited to host this very important conversation focused on the state of education in LA Unified, also known as Los Angeles Unified School District. I'm Vanessa Aramayo, I'm the Executive Director at Alliance for a Better Community, also known as ABC, and I am an LA Unified mom myself with 2 children in a school in Board District 5. So tonight I'm here as an advocate, a community partner, y también como una mamá. At ABC, we are committed to advancing social, economic, racial equity, and justice for the Latino community and the Los Angeles region. For years, ABC has been a leading education advocacy organization that has been leading efforts in the Southeast LA area. In 2022, ABC partnered with 7 community-based organizations to launch the Cela Votes Initiative, an effort to grow Latino and Latina electoral power in Southeast Los Angeles. Our goal has been clear from the beginning: to increase voter turnout in Southeast LA and foster an ongoing culture of civic participation. I'm proud to share that over the course of the last couple of years, over 50,000 doors have been knocked on, and we have had over 20% rate of contacting voters, speaking to voters, and identifying supporters who want to go out and vote and make sure that their voices are being heard. Cela Votes and this initiative is an example of what we can accomplish when we are together and when our communities and organizations work in a coordinated effort. The Southeast LA region has been a huge, important region in the larger landscape. It has a general population of 194,788, so almost 195,000 people, with a median household income of $54,000 a year. The South LA region has a high number of long-term residents investing in communities and coming back after graduation. It also is a region with a median age of 33 years old. LA Unified, the 2nd largest school district in the nation, is responsible for educating nearly 500,000 students across 1,300 school campuses. There are approximately 110,000 students whose parents have chosen to send their children to charter schools, and all of that falls under the jurisdiction of LA Unified. Of the top 3 largest school districts in the United States, LA Unified is the only one with an elected board of education. That's also referred to as a school board. The school board has 3 primary functions: 1, to approve policy; 2, to approve an annual operating budget of $10 billion; and 3, to hire, evaluate, and if necessary, fire the superintendent. This makes the school board vital within our community to ensure the educational success of all students. There are many voices that the school board listens to when it makes decisions. This forum is organized by community-based organizations and groups that serve students, families, and educators in some of the most vulnerable communities in LA Unified's district. In fact, much of the progress that LA Unified has made over the last 25 years is largely due to the activism of community members, many of you on the phone on the Zoom today, calling on more resources, tailored services, and greater access to a quality public education for students from our communities. Our goal tonight is to hear from each candidate, to learn about their plans to support our schools, and to elevate the voices of parents, students, and community members, and ensure that our newly elected school board member prioritizes our needs. Before we get this show started, we want to acknowledge and thank organizations who helped plan this event. Tonight is the 2nd of 3 in a series of forums. We are especially grateful to the lead partners, Innovate Public Schools, Community Schools of Los Angeles, and of course, my team at Alliance for a Better Community. My sincerest gratitude to all those that have been part of the planning committee, those members who worked extremely hard to make this forum possible. They include Community Coalition, Diversity in Leadership Institute, Education Leaders of Color, Inner City Struggle, Los Angeles Coalition for Excellent Public Schools, Parent Institute for Quality Education, and the Partnership for Los Angeles Schools. Now, it's my honor to welcome tonight's moderator, Dr. Wilma Franco. Dr. Franco is the Executive Director of the Cela Collaborative, which works to strengthen the Cela communities, build collective power, and encourage innovation to drive regional systemic change. Alliance for a Better Community is a proud founding member of the Cela Collaborative. Dr. Franco is not only a fierce advocate for the Cela communities, but she's also a parent and who, like many of you, cares deeply about ensuring a quality public education is accessible to all. So now I'll go ahead and pass it over to Dr. Franco.
Thank you, Vanessa. Appreciate the introduction. Good evening, everyone. I will be the moderator for tonight's forum. As Vanessa shared, I'm Dr. Wilma Franco, Executive Director of the Select Collaborative, serving the Southeast region of LA County. And a large portion of our region, right, is part of LAUSD, which is, part of the reason why these conversations are so important to our community. Thanks to everyone for joining us this evening. And it is a true testament to your dedication and investment in our public education system. Before we begin, I will share some housekeeping rules to ensure that the candidates are clear about how this forum will flow. Tonight's questions have been prepared by the event organizers, parents, and students. Additional questions may be submitted by the audience in writing through the chat function during the forum. We do have a team of our colleagues that are monitoring that, so if you want to enter your questions, you can do that. Those questions will be sorted and reviewed to ensure relevancy and to prevent partisanship or repetition. We will get to as many audience questions as time allows. The candidates will have 2 minutes each to introduce themselves. They will go in alphabetical order by last name. Candidates will provide closing statements later in the program. We will go in the reverse order for that round. So the candidates who introduce themselves last will go first during the closing statements. For the question portion of our forum, I will sort the order to keep this forum interesting. Candidates will be given equal time to respond to questions. We are allowing 1 minute and 30 seconds for each candidate. A timer will indicate when your time is up. The timer will start as soon as you are called upon. This includes any clarifying questions you may have. Our goal is to give every candidate the same amount of time and opportunity to answer the question. A note to the candidates and audience members that personal attacks are not permitted. And I do want to repeat myself, I will not allow any personal attacks, and you will receive a warning if you break this rule. If any candidate chooses to disregard this rule, we may turn off your mic and camera, and we ask you to stick to the issues. For audience members, we ask that you also be respectful to all candidates. Personal attacks will not be tolerated. If these rules are not respected, you may be removed from the Zoom. These questions have not been shared with any candidate before the forum. We have all 4 candidates that are running for BD5 with us this evening. Thank you for accepting our invitation and for sharing your vision for LA Unified with our audience. One last request to our candidates, please slow down your delivery to enable our interpreters to properly translate your message. Before I hand it over to the candidates to introduce themselves, I want to pause and have folks in our virtual room answer a quick question. So you'll see in your screen a survey question appear. So we ask that our audience please go ahead and take a minute to answer that. We know we have many parents, students, educators, CBOs, and community members in the room, and we welcome all of your responses. Let's see who exactly is in the room so that we can give candidates a better idea of our audience this evening. Please be sure to select all of the options that apply to you. So we're going to give a minute or two for you to answer that survey. And if the team wants to flag us when that has been completed. They're still tallying. Another 5 seconds. Awesome. And we do see 45% are parent or guardians. We have 5% of students in the room, 9% of educators, 39 identify as CBOs, 32 as community members. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for participating in that survey. Now let's meet the candidates. We have a lot we wanted to go over tonight. So before we start, I do want to remind everybody, you do have 2 minutes to answer your question, to do your introduction. So we are going to start in alphabetical order with Fidencio.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Fidencio Gallardo, and I'm running for LAUSD School Board because I believe that every child, regardless of their zip code, deserves a high-quality education in their neighborhood public school. I've spent the last 44 years of my life in LAUSD schools as a student at Middleton Street, State Street, Southgate Middle, and Bell High School, and as an English language arts teacher at Southgate Middle School for 18 years and Southgate High School for 9 years. I've also been an adult education teacher at Huntington Park Community Adult School. I am a teacher before anything else. In 2019, I joined board member Jackie Goldberg's staff so that I could learn more about how to support teachers in the classroom. After 27 years in the K through 12 classroom as a teacher, I know what teachers need in the classroom, and I know how to get things done for them. As a representative for a board member, I've learned the ins and outs of LAUSD, and I know how to get things done. And I've also already been serving the 144 schools in Board District 5, developing relationships with parents and families, students and staff. I have learned these communities and I have helped them with their needs. I am truly ready to hit the ground running on day one because I've already been doing the job. Aside from my K through 12 teaching experience, I have prepared new teachers at Cal State LA for the last 23 years. And lastly, in 2010, I got involved in my community after a terrible corruption scandal. People from all walks of life came together to save our city. Business owners, factory workers, teachers, housewives, bakers organized to get rid of the corruption through a recall election and to begin to rebuild Bell. I got elected to the city council in 2015 and I still serve there. I have no political ambitions beyond serving the students and families, teachers and staff of LAUSD as their board member. When I'm done as a board member, my reward to myself is to return to the classroom to teach because that's what I love best.
Thank you for that. And Carla?
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having me here. I'm excited to be here to be speaking to all community members. My name is Carla Griego, and I'm a teacher and I'm also a parent. I was born in El Salvador. I came here at 5 years old and went to LAUSD schools. I have worked throughout my 19 years of teaching. I have worked with the most marginalized students in the district, students with disability. And currently I am working with pregnant and parenting minors at McAllister High School. Not only am I a parent, a current parent, my daughter goes to Eagle Rock High School and a current teacher, but I've also been doing the work on the ground to bring resources to our schools. I have worked with parents at every single school that I've worked at to bring resources. At Buchanan Street in Highland Park, we were the only school without a play structure. And it was through organizing with parents that we were able to push our then school board member, Ref Rodriguez, to bring us 2 play structures to our school. We hadn't had one in 10 years. And we also were able to pressure the district to remove bungalows that were very old and to begin the process of starting a green space. This is way before we even won that in our contract in 2019. So I have been fighting for more resources for our students, not only as a parent and a teacher, but also as a union leader. As a union leader, I led over 100 schools to go on strike. I helped shape some of the most transformative contract language around green space, immigration, and class size reduction. So I bring a breadth of experience as an organizer, as a teacher working with the most marginalized students. And I would be the first ever current mom in Board District 5. So I am excited to be running for this position. Thank you.
Thank you. Victorio?
Buenas noches, buenas tardes. It is a pleasure being here. I have been in education, since Mr. Gallardo was pointing out, for 56 years since I started elementary. I'm a proud father of 5, really 6. One of my daughters died, and a grandparent. I would be the first grandparent actually representing the Board of Education. And why am I running? I'm running because of broken promises. In 1968, when the community of East LA decided to walk out because the students wanted social justice and more academic opportunities, they walked out and demanded better education. 56 years later, our grandkids are still waiting for that change. The strategic plan that the district has been developing, that is every 5 years, it's a beautiful document. The bad thing is it doesn't get implemented. It has to be about the students. Academic excellence. We know our students are at between 30 and 40 met or exceeded academically in English and in math. 60% of them are not at grade level. We know our kids are not engaged many times in school. When it says joy and wellness, pillar number 2, our kids have suffered losses with family that died during COVID. Many of our kids, if you've ever walked around the area of Jefferson, we have to have a safe passage for our kids. It is surrounded by a lot of gangs, violence, people that have been displaced. The wellness has to come to our schools. We have to provide a beautiful green space like Walnut Elementary that has a community garden. It would be great if all of us had it. Engagement and collaboration with the parents. Our parents have not been allowed to participate in the process of educating their kids. They were pushed out in many of the schools. It's not a welcoming environment. When it comes to operational effectiveness, the district continues to change from numbers.
Mario, your time's
Yes.
up.
Oh, thank you. Oh, well, sorry.
We're going to you, Garcela.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Buenas tardes todos. I'm Graciela Ortiz, and I am a candidate for LAUSD Board District 5. I've been an educator for over 17 years, born and raised in the beautiful city of Huntington Park. I'm a daughter of immigrant parents from Mexico, raised by a single mother. My dad died when I was 6 months. I'm the first in my family to go to college, graduated from Huntington Park High School, and made it to my dream school, UCLA. But when I got there, I was not prepared. I was not given that quality education that I feel that all our students deserve. And that's why I'm running for school board, because for far too long, our students haven't received equitable education. Some schools have more resources than others. We need fully funded schools. And I've been able to see that because I've been with the district for 17 years and I've been a council member for Huntington Park for 9 years. I've worked with schools, community-based organizations to ensure that we're providing resources and working together. I have a bachelor's degree from UCLA, a master's degree in social work, so I'm a licensed clinical social worker. Mental health is one of the biggest resources that we need to continue to have in our schools. I'm currently working on my doctorate in educational leadership, and I'm a few months away from obtaining that. The thing is this, my upbringing and my story isn't unique. It's the story of so many LAUSD students. And I'm running for LAUSD school board because I want to make sure that our communities have a voice on that school board. I want to make sure our parents have a welcoming environment, and we need to focus on safety in our classrooms and safety in our schools. When I talk about fully funded schools, I talk about lower class sizes. It's impossible to teach students when we have 40 students in a classroom. Our teachers aren't able to focus on the students that need it the most. So I believe that my experience as a council member and as an educator allows me to hit the ground running on day one to ensure that we have a voice on that school board. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your introductions. So we are going to move into the questions. I will give you some context and I will ask the question, and then just a friendly reminder, you have 1 minute and 30 seconds to provide your answer. Research has shown time and time again that students' engagement improves when they have educators who are culturally responsive and representative. As a board member, what role do you believe the school board plays in ensuring the district has culturally responsive educators and curriculum? And we're going to start with you, Fidencio.
Thank you so much for that question. I can speak to this because I grew up ashamed. I was ashamed to speak Spanish. I was ashamed to be Mexican American. I was ashamed to be gay. And all of this because my teachers, while they were excellent at teaching mathematics and science and history and reading, they didn't have that extra training that they need to actually bring the community into their classroom, to value who they are serving by making certain that the literature reflects who they're teaching. So I think the most important thing is to train teachers, to provide them with the tools and materials so that they can implement these practices, so that we have culturally and linguistically responsive instruction for all of our students. That's the game changer. There's nothing better than having a student feel connected, feel that they're part of something in the classroom, and that improves their learning. It wasn't until years later that I took Spanish because I wanted to improve my Spanish, until years later that I read The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. that I started to feel and see myself in literature, see myself in learning. That's what I want to provide for all students. And I think part of it goes through creating resolutions, making sure the Division of Instruction is working on providing these kinds of materials and tools for our teachers. I ended up teaching the house on Mongo Street to my 7th graders for many, many years. And that turned things around in my mind for my kids. They felt proud of who they were and thereby were better learners.
Thank you. Carla?
Thank you. Yes, it is very important to have culturally responsive curriculum and that our teachers are trained. But unfortunately, the training that the district has been giving to teachers so far has not placed the value that it talks. So for example, a lot of the trainings around equity or race, racism, anti-bias, they're all these trainings that are online. It's like a video that you watch and it's all independent, like asynchronous. And to me, that's not valuing that training. If you're just going to stick it into some format for people to just watch it on their own and not have conversations. So I want to make sure that whatever training we're giving our teachers are just as valuable as what we're speaking to. So that means that we actually have people presenting, that we actually have teachers engaging in conversations with each other, pulling out readings around culturally responsive curriculum and studying it together, making it an initiative for the whole school. And it's not just Latinos. Right now, I've worked practically my whole career with Latino students, but just recently in my job at McAllister High School, I'm now working with African-American students. And I see the need for teachers to become culturally responsive to African-American students as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Victorio?
You know, one of the basic things that we're missing, at least I see, is that we are the examples. There's a saying in Spanish, si las palabras excitan, los hechos arrastran. I've always been an example of who I am and how proud I am, but I'm also sensitive to the needs of every single individual in my classroom. When I was at Southgate High School, we were able to organize the African-American Club. I was able to organize a Machista group. I was able to organize kids that wanted to go ahead and deal with being the victims of drunk drivers. They had lost some of their friends and relatives. It's important that the training is internalized. One of the biggest problems is that the district has always trained, but once the classroom closes, nothing happens. If it were to happen, we would transform the district. It doesn't take a book to transform a classroom. It takes a commitment and an awareness that every individual counts, every student counts. I cannot neglect a single student based on their culture. All cultures have to be brought in. All the diverse thinking, that's what enriches our world. That's why the mosaics that we use for therapy really work well, because every piece fits into a beautiful mosaic. And like the song says, from a distance, the world looks happy, but the world is still broken, but broken in a way that we can become beautiful. And that's what the diversity is. African Americans need to be given a chance to be successful. I don't have to be Black to be sensitive to the needs of Blacks or Chinese. I have to be willing to provide the best quality education that the district can offer, and the district has to be held accountable. Thank you.
Thank you. Graciela?
Right. So culturally responsive educators and curriculum is really important for students so that they're able to feel comfortable at their school sites. But one of the things that helped me a lot growing up is having educators that were from my community. We need to do a better job of ensuring that we're recruiting and teachers that are part of our communities, so that we have educators and education workers within our schools that understand the communities that they work in, because they live in those communities. The biggest teachers that made the most impact to me were teachers that were Huntington Park High School alums. And, you know, back in the days, it was about like you move out of the Southeast or you move out of the communities. It's not like that anymore. You have a lot of individuals that are willing to give back to the communities of Board District 5. And it's not about moving out, it's about improving your own communities. The district wants to say that we're culturally responsive and we're providing these trainings, but it's just a checkoff. It's not being implemented. It's not something that it's actually very, very important to folks. It's just saying we're doing it. And so we need to have actions, and working with community-based organizations, working with leaders from within the community that are providing this type of education to our students. The other piece is having parent voice. and student voice and teacher voice. A lot of times curriculums just get handed to teachers and they're told, here you go, teach this. Where is their voice? So we need to make sure that we do that, work together to develop curriculums that are culturally responsive.
Thank
Thank
you, candidates, for your responses. Now I'd like to transition us to talk about digital equity. Virtual learning left a lot to be desired, and return to school efforts have been disruptive. It also elevated the crude reality that too many households in LA lack access to quality, affordable, high-speed internet. How will you ensure that LAUSD provides permanent solutions to end digital discrimination and increase resources for digital equity in the region? And we're going to start with you, Graciela, first.
For sure. So I really believe that LAUSD has to continue to work with the cities that they surround themselves with, City of Los Angeles, Southeast cities. So for example, in the city of Huntington Park, we are trying to fight this digital equity and ensuring that we are providing those resources to our residents. For example, all our city facilities, we provide free Wi-Fi now within all our city facilities, and we're using grant monies to do that. We saw during the pandemic that our students that were most vulnerable were those individuals that didn't have Wi-Fi. And the thing is that the district doesn't understand that some of our families live 3 to a home, so they can't even get digital, they can't even get their own Wi-Fi because they're sharing space with other families. So I truly believe that the district needs to invest and collaborate with the state of California and with all local communities to ensure that we just have Wi-Fi provided throughout the entire district, not just Board District 5, but throughout the entire district. And part of that is working with other governments, such as the county supervisors and state officials, state assembly members and state senators, so that that funding is coming into our schools. The other piece is making sure that those that need mobile devices are able to get them. Now, it's easy to say that everybody's going to be able to get a mobile device, but the reality is that we have so many families that still don't have a mobile Wi-Fi device, even though LAUSD provides them. And I've tried using one of those hotspot devices. They don't always work. So we need to build a system that works for all.
Thank you. Fidencio.
Thank you so much. The same way that Graciela just said, we provide that universal Wi-Fi in our city facilities to make sure that people have access. But that's just the starting point. I think that LAUSD needs to go deeper. We learned very quickly during the pandemic that, we had limited devices and people were without, and hotspots weren't strong enough because a lot of times you had competing, hotspots in very close proximity to one another. So we need to make certain that we bridge that digital divide by increasing investment in these kinds of technology, devices, working with state officials, working with the county, making certain that we take advantage of every opportunity. In the city of Bell, we have this wonderful organization called the Southeast Community Development Corporation. They do a fantastic job of getting these devices out to folks who need them. But we also need to invite these kinds of nonprofits into our schools so that we're better able to get, devices and connection to all families. I think one of our limitations as a school district is we are resistant to working with community partners, and that needs to change. That's something that I'm going to make certain changes so that nonprofits can come onto our campus and help us bridge this gap. Because at the end of the day, unless children have access to these devices, their instruction is limited.
Thank you. We're going to go to you, Carla.
Yeah, as a teacher at McAllister High School, we have 3 different sites and we're considered one school. And so we rely on Zoom for all of our parent meetings, for all of our student assemblies. And that is one of our biggest challenges, is the fact that parents do not have a Chromebook or a device or Wi-Fi, or they may only be able to use their phone. And it makes it difficult to engage with in the meeting because of that. And our students, I said I work with pregnant and parenting minors. Our students rely on the free phones. Those free phones don't work all the time. And so they miss out on a lot of things, like even accessing their own schooling online if they need to do that. So this is it's a dire need in our district. And honestly, it makes me angry that being the largest one of the largest districts, and our students are still suffering through this. Even 3 years after the pandemic, they have not figured this out. And I agree with some of the statements that were made here about how the district refuses to engage with other community organizations. And that is wrong, because we need to leverage all the assets in our city. And we can't be working in silo if we want to meet the needs of all of our students. Ultimately, the ones who are suffering are our students, my students, who are daily needing this Wi-Fi. So I'm going to work with leveraging these resources from the outside.
Thank you. We're going to go to you, Victorio.
Yes, you know, one of the biggest problems is that the district is failing to provide what it promises to do to all our students. I don't understand why we have been involved in this for years and we still haven't advanced in any way. Parents have to hold the district accountable. Our taxes are high. That is one of the main things we need at every single household, regardless how many families live in that community, within that garage or within that house. The district's responsibility is to provide a means of educating when the kid is not able to come to school. So we have to hold them accountable. The money is there. How is the money being wasted? And if the money is not there because it has been allocated to some other place, then let's get the state involved and let's get the federal government. This is a sense of urgency. I think we look for a lot of excuses. And the truth is that the district is misusing the funds. One of the first things that I would want to do is make sure that every single household is able to communicate with the school. They have the right device. It is adequate for the student. Our students are able to use their phone all the time, and they're able to have access to all kinds of things. So how is it that the phones are more powerful than some of the devices we buy? That's because only one individual sells computers to our district, but that's another issue. So we need to make sure that those things are provided this year, not next year, not the following year. We have to make a commitment now, and the 7 board members need to be held accountable.
Thank you for
I don't want to go beyond my time. I'm sorry, I talked too slow before.
Thank you so much. I do want to turn our attention to a different topic, English learner students. So I am going to give you a little bit of context here. About 48% of students in LAUSD fall under the category of ever English learners, meaning they have either been classified as English learners or are students with emerging biliteracy skills. Spanish continues to be the predominant non-English language spoken by English learners in LAUSD. Additionally, it's important to note that while the overall high school graduation rate in LAUSD stands at 87.4%, the graduation rate for English learners is notably lower at 65.3%. Moreover, only 52.1% of English learners meet the requirements for UC or CSU admission, compared to 65.2% of all graduating students. Additionally, each year, California welcomes approximately 150,000 to 200,000 newcomer students. Newcomers are students who have recently arrived at U.S. schools and often have highly limited English skills. So the question is, given that English learners are one of the fastest growing student populations, how do you plan on effectively meeting the linguistic needs of students and their families? And just a reminder, you have a minute and a half. And we're going to start with you, Victorio.
Okay, English language learners, you know, my kids were born here, grew up here, and because we said we spoke Spanish at home because of my suegra, the kids were classified as English limited. And they kept them like that because they're very shy. So what happens is that there's a system that doesn't recognize that our students need intervention, enrichment, and respect for the language they're bringing. They have skills, and those skills can be used to develop in any class. When I was growing up, bilingual education was perceived as something negative. And all of a sudden, we became dual language and everybody accepts it. English language learners are neglected. It's a neglected population. They're just put away just like some of the kids with special needs. They do a lot of lip service. When the federal government came and they were investigating that we were failing to provide adequate intervention for the English language students, they did a dog and pony show, and the district was able to get some more time. I think we do a disservice. The parents need to get involved. The parents need to demand that the students develop fluency. We have to hold the teachers accountable. And the graduation rate is inflated because the KC was eliminated, and it's just, they're just giving them diplomas, but they're not ready to be successful in this world that is very demanding. Thank you. I don't want to go beyond my time.
Thank you so much. Graciela?
Right. So I've worked with many English language learners and in different levels, right? And one of my biggest focuses I've said is literacy and making sure that we're providing resources to our kiddos that are in the 2nd and 3rd grade and are not at reading level. We brought a tutoring program into the city of Huntington Park specifically for the summer, and many of our students were at 2nd grade reading level, yet they were in the 7th grade. We were able to get them to two levels above during that summer. So what does that mean? It means that we need to make sure that our kiddos are getting one-on-one extra education outside of just the classroom. The other piece is that many of our English learners aren't reclassifying by the time they get to high school. And then when they get to high school, they're given rigorous English courses and they're not able to pass those classes. And that's why our graduation rate is so low with our English language learners. So what we need to do is make sure that we're catching them early and providing this early intervention. The thing is that the district has this data, but we're not providing those programs. The other piece is our newcomers. Our newcomers are coming in at 16, 17 years old, and they want to start working because they want to be able to provide food for the family. So we need programs where we're going to be able to provide an education and provide them jobs. And that's one of the pilot programs that they're trying to start in South Central, specifically for our newcomers. And I believe the district needs to start working collaboratively to provide these opportunities for students.
Thank you. Fidencio?
I think part of this is kind of shifting what we call these students. We always call them English language learners. And that whole idea of English language learners is transitioning them away from their home language and using their home language to get them into English. I think we need to embrace this idea of emergent bilinguals. And that's part of the shift that needs to happen. Victoria mentioned earlier, we need to build upon what they come with. A lot of them already have a lot of skills. So the instruction needs to shift so that we're building on their Spanish or whatever their primary language is, and that enriches their learning. The Seal of Biliteracy is something that was created a few years back. And it might just seem like a slogan, but I think it's actually created a different environment where English language learners and students hoping to pick up the second language are actually feeling like this is something positive. For so long, these other languages were thought to be something that, you only need to come to school to learn English and forget those home languages. So that needs to shift very much so. I think it's about, making certain that our teachers have the expertise. A lot of them do. We have pretty good redesignation rates in a lot of places. We just need to grow this. And we need to also keep in mind that these students come at all ages. Newcomers arrive from kindergarten all the way through. So we have to have programs in place to make certain that we are addressing their needs. I'm excited about the newcomer centers that are popping up again, like the one at Bernstein High School, which is in Board District 5.
Thank you. Carla?
Yes, the school that I work at right now, I work pre-K to 22-year-olds. So I have seen new ELL students or English language learner students from the very young all the way up to 22. And the current population that I'm working with, we have at my school, 47% of our student population are considered newcomers. These are young women who have just arrived to the country. They have crossed the border pregnant, have lived in a home for 3 months out of the state, and now they are been relocated with a family member. So for a lot of these students, not only are they trying to adjust to this new country, this new environment, and learn a language, but there's also a lot of trauma that comes with it. And that may be the case with my particular student population, but that may also be the case with a lot of other students throughout the district. So we need to see our students holistically. We need to see that they come with a story and an experience that might be causing them challenges to learn immediately or as fast as we want them to. So we need to give these kids a lot of support, holistic supports. We need to do cultural support. We need to do language in small classes. I taught ELD 1 at the high school level, and my students improved because I had 10 students for 2 hours, and we did that work. So they need to be seen holistically, not just looking at them for the language that they need to advance in.
Thank you. Thank you, candidates. Our next question will focus on students' access to college. College rates for Black, Latino, Indigenous, and other students of color continue to remain low despite efforts to bridge this gap. In 2022-2023 school year, only 53% of graduating students had completed the A through G requirements for UC, CSUs, and less than a third of LAUSD graduates completed a 2-year or 4-year college degree. The question is, how will you implement, expand, and leverage existing programs such as dual enrollment to ensure that students not only enter higher education, but also obtain their degrees? And we're going to start with Carla.
You know, again, my population of students, we celebrated this year that in the past 3 years, we had not had anybody apply or be admitted to a university. And finally, we had one student who was admitted to Cal State Northridge and Cal State Monterey Bay. She is a mom of a 3-month-old baby who lives in foster care, and she's gonna be going to college, and she's gonna need all that support. So I think that the dual enrollment program, we've tried it at my school, and it's wonderful for some kids who are able to manage those 2 classes. So again, we need to be able to have programs that meet the needs of the kids and where they are. Dual enrollment is wonderful, and it can really help students advance in these courses, but we also have to be creative in how we schedule our students. So for example, you know, we had that block schedule that was attached to some money, and everybody jumped on it, and it really helped a lot of students learn and grow and stay in their class and really develop the skills. Well, that money's now gone. And all of a sudden, a lot of schools are scrambling to try to meet that need. So we need to make sure that we have these other things in place, like class size that is small, that we have schedules that meet the needs of the students, and that we also provide after-school enrichment programs, field trips for our students to colleges.
Carla, your time's
And
up.
dual enrollment. Yes.
Thank you. Graciela.
Right. So, you know, the reality is that we have to change the entire culture of many of our communities. And I think it starts with the parents. I really believe that we start with the community and informing parents of the need for their students to be able to go into a 4-year university and what pathways do they have to get there, right? I'm a strong believer that we, as the 2nd largest school district in the country, need to make sure that all our students that graduate are college and career ready, that they have the ability to go to a 4-year university if they want to, but also have the ability to go into whatever career they want to go into. The dual enrollment program has worked great for many, many students, but not a lot of students are offered these programs. That's where the equity issue comes in. Students that are in AP classes, honors classes, they get offered these programs, but some students that are just making it through with their high school courses aren't being told, hey, there's these other courses that you may be able to take. We have ELAC that's expanding their campus here in the Southeast. I just had a meeting with them, and they're talking about providing classes to our parents regarding college and career readiness. And will we partner up with them in the city to do that? Absolutely. This is where the partnerships come in with other educational institutions and working together and making sure that our students are college and career ready. But we have to make sure that it's embedded in them since they're little. Kindergarten, 1st grade, we need to talk to them about getting into college. And then it's their choice to do it once they graduate. But we have to work together to change the culture. Thank you.
Thank you. Victorio?
The dual enrollment worked great. One of the problems that we had is, since I was a principal and a counselor, and I would look through the A through G requirements, many of our kids never met with the counselors because the counselors have so many kids, 1 to 500. And I would go over the A through G requirements and say, look, you need to meet those requirements to qualify to go to the university. And they're like, well, no one ever told me. But they were already seniors. So one of the things that we have to do is start in the middle school. Make sure we plant the seeds of going to college, but don't stress them out because it has to be their dream. Not my dream, not their parents' dream, not to fulfill my dream, but the student need to understand they can make it in college. College is an option. And one of the things that we failed to do is take the students to the colleges, the universities around us, and then tell the kid, would you like to come to UCLA? One of the things that Ms. Ortiz mentioned is she went to her dream school, UCLA. For many of our kids, they go to the dream school and it becomes a nightmare. They're not prepared. We didn't prepare them. We didn't academically prepare them. And so it becomes a nightmare. The dual enrollment would allow the students to see that some college classes are actually engaging, more fun than the high school. We need to give that opportunity to every single student, students in special ed, ELs, students that are having social emotional issues, because once they go to college, they're going to say, I can make it. And I think we need to make sure that it is all the kids are exposed, not just some. All students have to be exposed. Bring the parents along. Let the parents see the benefits of going to LA Trade Tech, the benefits of going to East LA and then transferring to Cal State Long Beach, Cal State LA. So yes, definitely, it can work.
Thank you. Fidencio?
Yeah, I think it's about changing the mindset in our communities. It's about exposure early on in elementary, having these conversations. I love visiting our schools and seeing the banners up and everyone wearing t-shirts to their different universities. My parents only made it to 2nd and 6th grade, yet me and my 3 siblings all graduated from USC undergrad. And I mean, why would that have happened? Why would that have happened except that my parents, somewhere along the line, picked up the idea that education was the only way for their children to have a better future. So starting early with kindergartners or pre-K, talking about college, talking about the value and importance of education. I think we also need to reduce class size so that we can increase rigor. We need to increase rigor with our students. So many of our kids get into 4-year universities and they don't graduate. We were looking at one of the local schools in the Southeast. They have like an 89% acceptance rate into universities, but only 20% actually graduate. So that's telling you that they're not on track. Something's missing. Something's missing in that equation. The dual enrollment program has been fantastic. You know, it's really helped our kids have that experience before they get there. But like the others mentioned, it's also important to have something for the rest of our students. Yes, we need to be college and career ready, but we also need to have a plan for when we get out of high school. And that means exposing our students to trades and other opportunities through career and technical education, because to me, that's how we serve everyone, not just the kids on the college track.
Thank you so much, candidates, for your thoughtful feedback. Now we will have questions from LAUSD students and parents. First, we have Katy Mesa, parent leader with Alliance for a Better Community. As a reminder, if you require translation, be sure to click the globe or menu on the bottom of your screen and select your preferred language. Katy, welcome, bienvenida.
Buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es Katy Mesa. Soy madre de 2 niños estudiantes en escuelas públicas del Distrito 5 y también soy una madre líder con Alliance for a Better Community. ABC es una organización comunitaria que aboga por las comunidades latinas en el condado de Los Ángeles. Antes de la pandemia, nuestra comunidad latina ya estaba por debajo del nivel de grado. Mis hijos son parte del alto porcentaje de estudiantes que fueron impactados por la pérdida de aprendizaje a distancia, dejándolos en desventaja. Si bien la pandemia de COVID-19 afectó a todas las familias y estudiantes, datos muestran que perjudicó desproporcionadamente a los estudiantes de color en comunidades de bajos recursos. LAUSD recibió miles de millones de dólares para mitigar la pérdida de aprendizaje a distancia, y las últimas fuentes de financiación expiran el próximo año. Me gustaría preguntarles cuál sería su prioridad para cerrar las brechas de equidad y aprendizaje. Gracias.
We're going to start with you, Fidencio.
Okay, and we respond in English or Spanish?
That's a great question. Talia?
I can respond in English. We have the translation, but thank you for
Okay.
asking.
Very good. Thank you so much. So thank you, Katy Mesa, for this question. You are very right. This COVID money that we received is going to go away in 2025. So there's going to be a lot of changes. And we have to be smart about what we prioritize. I think the direct impact is going to be felt in our schools. So we need to prioritize making certain that tutoring continues for all of our students. That's something that groups in the Southeast, parent groups in the Southeast, really fought for and was achieved. I think we need to make certain that we do not impact class size. We've made some gains at some of the lower grade levels. So we need to make sure that we keep the class sizes small at the elementary levels and some of the other grade levels. I think it's also important that because this money is going away, that we provide some of the services like psychiatric social workers. That's a position that is so crucial, especially with all of the mental health needs that we've identified, since COVID. It's going to be a big conversation. The community needs to be a part of this. We also need to push the state. Someone mentioned earlier, we need to push the state. California is the 5th largest economy in the world, yet we're ranked 42nd for per pupil funding. That needs to change, and it only happens when we press our legislators, our assembly members, our state senators for additional funding, because that's the true crime here, lack of funding.
Carla. Carla, you're muted.
All right. So yes, definitely, I think that there was a lot of learning loss, but there was also a lot of trauma that happened due to COVID. And I think that we need to prioritize our mental health support. And that is the one thing that the district talks about and does not prioritize. In fact, just now they cut 100 PSWs, and out of the community schools office, they're going to try to save those positions. But that to me shows where the district's priorities are. There's also enrichment programs that our students can do. I know we talk about tutoring, and I've done after-school tutoring and intervention, but let me tell you, we have to be creative. How we teach our students this extra support. It can't be the same way we're teaching in the classroom. So we have to be creative in the way that we provide, quote, intervention or enrichment programs. So the students who are not learning in the same manner that is being taught in the classroom have an opportunity to learn. So maybe there needs to be training and using manipulatives to learn different things, using visuals. So those are the things. We also need to maintain the class size low, and we need extra support in the classrooms. We need more TAs, teacher assistants who can support. And lastly, it's not just the state's fault. There is $4 billion in that reserve, and we could use at least $2 billion of those for all of these supports for our students.
Thank you. Victorio?
One of the things that I think we continue to go ahead and look for excuses, our kids were way behind prior to COVID-19. The funding was there, the money was wasted. And it was wasted because they didn't care about educating our students. How do you educate a kid when you go from 6 hours to 3 hours and teachers could go ahead and then get paid for tutoring the rest of the time? How is it that they were able to start later and finish earlier? So what happens is that we have to hold the district accountable. Our kids don't need tutoring when in front of them is a teacher that is competent and motivating and engaging the students. Most of the students that I talk to and teachers that are currently at high schools and middle schools say the kids are bored to death. They're not engaged. They are preparing them to take tests that the state will offer, but they're not preparing them to be engaged in learning and developing good skills and understanding that their learning is very important and that is critical to their success. I believe the parents have to walk into the classrooms and see exactly what's happening. They have to hold the teachers accountable for the lack of learning. We have them for 6 hours. How is it that they can't read to learn, to write, and to understand basic conversations and have a good understanding of what they're reading? We are failing as adults, not the kids, not the parents. We have to take the responsibility. Tutoring is additional money that people will receive, but if it's the same teacher that couldn't motivate them during the regular day, why would you pay them extra to bore them another hour? So no, I believe we have to hold them accountable, and the parents have to demand more than what is being delivered. We are failing the students.
Thank you, Victorio. Graciela?
So COVID-19 did the two parts. It caused lack of motivation in our students, and then it also affected our educators. And when you start talking about cuts and they start talking about budget issues, and yes, ARPA monies is going to expire, which is COVID money, we have to find a way to work around. And how do we do that? We cut outsourcing services. There are many top-heavy consultants at the district office that are very, very expensive, and we don't need them. And the reality is that there's outside programs being brought into the district that cost the district a lot of money. And once again, it's taking away jobs from our actual educators that are within LA Unified. So when you take the morale away from educators, they're not able to provide all those services to our students. Our students fell behind. They were already behind before COVID. We know that one-on-one tutoring helps. So we need to make sure that our class sizes, they don't just stay how they are. We need to make sure that we reduce class sizes even more so. But then there's this online program for tutoring, but we know that one-on-one education works a lot better. So we have to go towards that. The other part is partnering up with the county, partnering up with the state, and having them provide resources. Right now, we have current programs within LAUSD employees that are being paid by the County of Los Angeles and the City of Los Angeles to provide mental health services and attendance support. So we need more partnerships of those, and it's time to call on our partners from other governments.
Thank you, President. Thank you so much, candidates, for your feedback. Thank you, Kathy, for that question. Up next, we have student leader Eric Cabrera. Welcome, Eric.
Hello, everyone. My name is Eric Cabrera. I'm a junior at Sansi Education Complex. I'm also a part of Communities and Schools of Los Angeles, known as CIS LA, a nonprofit organization supporting students like me in 15 LAUSD schools with one-on-one academic support and community resources. I've been a student of CIS LA since 6th grade. Enrollment in LAUSD has been declining for several years, from its high of 737,000 students 20 years ago to a little over 420,000 students now. I've been in LAUSD since preschool, witnessing countless of my peers and close friends of mine leave the district due to the high cost of living in LA. Enrollment is predicted to decline even more over the next decade. LAUSD is projecting a $2.5 billion deficit by the 2026 school year. According to LA Times, this will lead to tough choices ahead about academic programs, campus closures, jobs, and employee benefits. Now, my question to you is, in previous economic deficits, districts such as LAUSD have used last in, first out, also known as LIFO, policies when considering layoffs. Given that 2 out of 3 early career teachers in LAUSD are BIPOC, and 2/3 of those educators could be laid off if LIFO layoffs occurred, how would you mitigate the impacts of BIPOC educators and often economically vulnerable staff? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Eric. We're going to start with Graciela.
All right, so thank you so much for that question. So I think there's 2 parts here to be able to address this. Is we need to make sure that the funding that's coming from the state of California changes, and that's lobbying our assembly members and our senators. Right now, we're receiving funding based on enrollment, based on attendance. So I've been working with attendance for 17 years, making sure that we're breaking down every possible barrier that impedes a child from being in school. And enrollment declines for various reasons. The cost of living in Los Angeles has gone really, really high. So we need to make sure that we're working with community organizations to keep our families within LAUSD. The other piece is not promoting all our positive programs. So there was a question in the chat regarding losing students to Downey Unified and other districts. They're promoting their amazing programs. We need to do more of that within LAUSD and recruit from other areas, just like other districts are recruiting students from our district. We have amazing programs within our district, and we have many of our schools that are now getting recognized nationally within Board District 5. So we need to do more of that. Regarding the last part of the question, and that's bargaining, working with our unions to see how we make sure that we are retaining quality educators. The reality is that we need 0 layoffs. 0 layoffs is the goal all the time. We don't want to lay off anyone because we need every single educator within LA Unified. And like I said before, we need to start with stopping the outsourcing that's happening within LAUSD, because that's where the money's going.
Thank you. Fidencio?
Thank you. Yes, definitely something that's very concerning. Like Graciela just said right now, part of it is about changing how we're funded in schools. It's always been about attendance. It needs to be about enrollment. That is going to help us in LAUSD to ensure that we have more of the resources to provide the continuity that our students need. I agree with the student that we need to make certain that our students see themselves in the teachers and the staff at our schools. And this last in, first out rule, that's been worked around in the past so that we don't do that, so that we hold on to people, depending on different criteria. I think it's a needs thing. We need to have people of color as teachers in our schools. I also think that marketing is what we're missing. You know, a lot of schools out there, they do a fantastic job. A lot of districts do a fantastic job at marketing, and that makes all the difference in drawing people to the unique and wonderful programs that we have throughout LAUSD. So it's really about us doing the work and prioritizing the needs of our students and making certain that our kids have access to the best teachers, the teachers who reflect who they are, and that we are providing the ample support to keep those folks, to keep those teachers on our campuses by making certain that we bring more students back to LAUSD. We went from 660 20 years ago to 420,000. That's not acceptable. We need to turn it around.
Thank you. Carla?
Yeah, so before anything is cut, we need to have parent, student, and community voice. We need to know what they want. What are their priorities? It's not my priorities. It's not that, you know, that's one of the reasons why I'm running, is because parent voice is not reflected in the decisions of the district. And I want to change that. So I want to talk and hear from parents and communities and community organizations and hear what they want to prioritize. And if this is something that they want to prioritize, I want to continue having those conversations, because that is important, that before we cut anything, we have that conversation. I want to talk about community schools. The Community Schools Initiative basically centers the needs of students, of our most vulnerable students, and it leverages the resources of the community to bring those resources in. And we need to expand those. I work at a community school. I led the application process, and I did it because that was a way to bring more resources for my students. The other thing is that it also is a very democratic process where all the budgets are shown to the community, and the community decides and votes on these budgets. If you're in a traditional school, you don't get to see all the budgets. So I would support expanding community schools as a way to bring people to our schools, because once you're in there as a parent, you'll want to stay there.
Thank you, Carla. Victorio?
I believe that the funding formula has to change. That's a given. But another thing that we have to go ahead and do is everything should be based on student needs. I believe that our district, the biggest problem is it is top heavy. As Mr. Ortiz pointed out, we have a lot of consultants that are very expensive. If you look at Transparent California, you see that many of our local individuals are making $250,000, $300,000, $350,000. None of our teachers are making that money. None of our clerical is making that money. We have allocated money for nurses at our schools, but none of those schools really have nurses. There's a lot of money that is just being wasted. So I would definitely have a transparent meeting with the community and say, this is the amount of money we have. This is how far it's going to take us. Let's make some decisions. The district is top heavy. The person that is really essential are the people in the front office, the teachers, and administrators. Aside from that, we saw that the only union that paralyzed the entire district were the people in the office, the people that provide the services, and the teachers joined them. So I think we need to prioritize and let the students be part of it. The students need to be able to give us input and say, this is what our school needs, this is what is important. If we don't need more bureaucrats or bureaucrats, we need to eliminate those positions so that we go ahead and continue to service the needs of our community, have them prepared to go to college. Everything has to be centered around student needs, period. And we have to go to the federal government and get additional funding. The money's there. So, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric, for that question. Finally, we will have Innovate Parent Leader Judith Larson. Welcome, Judith.
Thank you. Yes, mi nombre es Judith Larson y soy mamá soltera de una niña hermosa, es parte del distrito. Ella va a Southgate High School. Y la verdad es que brevemente me gustaría decirles que mi sueño, como el de muchos padres, es que podamos, nuestros hijos puedan asistir a la escuela de sus sueños, no que la escuela venga y los elija. Con eso quiero decir que estoy muy interesada en lo que es lo equitativo. Y mi pregunta tiene que ver con eso. Antes también quisiera brevemente decirles que trabajo para una firma de abogados que representa a padres que tienen casos abiertos en corte y todo el tiempo veo lo mismo. Son padres que sus hijos están en escuelas necesitadas, en escuelas que están abandonadas, en escuelas a las que no se les pone la atención que se merecen, porque siempre lo digo y lo voy a seguir diciendo, nuestros niños son capaces y nuestros niños se lo merecen. Entonces, me gustaría también que a manera de cuidar se pudiera enfocar en los niños que necesitan la ayuda y no nada más en los los avanzados. Pero bueno, eso sería otra cosa. Todos sabemos, regresando al punto, lo que es el financiamiento equitativo. Y entonces quiero decirles lo poquito que yo sé, que en el 2014 el distrito decretó el índice de necesidades de cuidar estudiantil, el programa CENI, y el distrito ahora asigna 700 millones de dólares para las escuelas en función de su nivel y de su necesidad. Sabemos que la mayoría de nuestras escuelas en áreas no tan privilegiadas están necesitadas. Entonces, lo que quisiera decirles entonces es que el BD1, más del 60, en el BD1, más del 60%, o sea, más de 53 escuelas de las escuelas que ustedes representarían, se consideran de gran necesidad, ¿no? Volvemos a lo mismo, son nuestras áreas donde necesitamos muchísima ayuda y se puede si lo hacemos juntos en equipo. BD5 tiene 58 escuelas de alta necesidad. La mayor cantidad de las escuelas de alta necesidad están dentro de todo el distrito, claro, a diferentes niveles. Más de 2/3 de las escuelas representan por DB7 se consideran necesidades altas, las segundas más altas para todos los distritos de la Junta Directiva en todo el distrito. Mi pregunta entonces para ustedes es, sabemos que es necesario tomar decisiones difíciles, como maestros, como distrito, como padres. Y muchos de las decisiones difíciles en el distrito representan recortes presupuestarios, recortes del presupuesto, de los fondos que hay. Mi pregunta aquí para todos es, ustedes, de llegar a ser elegidos y representarnos en el distrito a los estudiantes y a los padres, priorizarían o le darían prioridad y protegerían a las escuelas con grandes necesidades, según lo define el CENI, y de ser así, ¿cómo lo harían? Gracias.
Thank you. It looks like we lost Dr. Franco, so I'll go ahead and call on candidates. Just give me one moment. We'll go ahead and start with Victorio.
As you can tell, we still have issues with the internet, including us. As she pointed out, I think it's very important that we never, ever stop protecting the most vulnerable population and the most vulnerable schools in our district. I think we have the resources, and I know that we can allocate the money to continue to provide the resources to every single school. We need to meet with the community. We need to be able to sit down and have that conversation with a transparent budget so that there are no issues. Most of the problem is centered around, as Ms. Grego pointed out, he says, we have $4 billion. We could easily use $2 billion. But sometimes what I ask myself is the $2 billion going to be wasted like all the rest of the money? We need to prioritize. There are certain things that must be presented to our students. Quality education, safety. The mental health is a big issue. We can never take any cuts when it comes to things that allow the student to survive, grow, develop, and develop once again that holistic approach to their life and existence. So the most vulnerable schools need more resources than a school that is already quite successful without having the same issues, say like Santee, Jefferson, Southgate, and other schools that surround our areas. You have to look at it. We have to develop a strategic plan that works for all, not just for some. So.
Thank you. We'll have Graciela next.
So one of the things about Board District 5 is that it's very different. Different sections of Board District 5 have different needs. Eagle Rock has particular needs. Mount Washington has particular needs. East Hollywood has particular needs. South LA, Southgate, Bell, Maywood, Cudahy, communities even close to one another have different needs. The reality is that we've had an equity issue for far too long. The reality is that as a student, I saw the equity issues within our community. We were on a year-round system when other areas of LA Unified were in a traditional calendar system. So this isn't something new. I will always advocate for the students and the families that need it the most. But I have to say that every single school has needs. And part of the problem is that there are a lot of people from the outside, county supervisors, city of LA, our Southeast cities that are willing to help the district with programs and funding. And we talk about mental health, and there's monies within the county that we can ask for within our district to be able to alleviate those budgets, that budget deficit. But the district always has this huge amount of red tape that they do not allow other people to partner with LA Unified. And we need to make sure that that's how we ensure that our students are receiving quality education and equitable resources. So I will prioritize the schools that need it the most all the time, because that's what I've done for the past 20 years, is advocate for students that need it the most. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Dr. Franco back. I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. I had a little bit digital divide challenge of my own here. We're going to go with Fidencio.
Thank you, Dr. Franco. We absolutely must protect our most vulnerable schools, and I will make it a priority. CENI is a great formula. It ensures that more money is sent to the schools with the higher needs. I think money and funding is very important to ensure that these schools have better opportunities, better programs, and so forth. But it isn't just about the money. It's about making certain that that money is used well and that these programs are properly implemented. A lot of schools receive a lot of extra money, and sometimes you end up with people that don't even know what their position's about. I'm talking about, for example, restorative justice, which is a wonderful program. I'm a strong advocate, but when they first rolled it out 15 years ago, people who were given the job of restorative justice coordinators didn't know what they were supposed to do. There were no clear guidelines, there was no direction, there was no supervision of those programs, and that money was wasted. So we need to make certain that the money arrives, but that it's also implemented properly. And we need to open up to all community partners, nonprofits, other government organizations, because there are many people who would love to come onto our campuses and help. Look around us at other districts, Downey Unified, Montebello, Linwood. They take advantage of these opportunities. We don't, and we're missing the boat. We're shortchanging our students. We need to make certain that we get the most funds to our kids who need the most, but we also need to make sure that those programs are well run and properly serving our students.
Thank you. Carla?
Yes, so my whole career has been working with the most vulnerable students. And as a teacher and a parent, I've been fighting to get these resources to our students because I have seen the lack of resources, but that's not sustainable. And I want to transform that. Doing it school by school is not sustainable. So I definitely want to center the highest needs and the most vulnerable population. And I always say that if you can center them and meet their needs, then you're meeting the needs of all of our students. When it comes to the money coming in, one of the things that the district does is it sends money late. All of a sudden, the money appears in February. And then you have to come up with a plan and you have to spend it immediately. And that's how money gets wasted because people are rushing. You're running a school and it's hard to come up with a plan to use it immediately. The other thing, Fidencio mentioned RJ, the RJ coordinators. The district never launched it with fidelity. It never trained all of us 100%. It would train a couple of teachers at a school site. That to me is a disservice. And that is the hypocrisy of saying that you care about our students and you're going to invest in them and then roll something out so shabby that it fails. And then they say it fails. That to me is a disservice to our students. So I am going to always prioritize the most vulnerable students and fight for them to always get the resources that they need.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Carla. And thank you to all of our parents and students who provided questions. We are now going to move into the audience Q&A. We will have questions submitted from the audience. Please use the Q&A function on the Zoom to submit your questions now. Our team will sort through them to ask a few that rise to the top. While folks submit those, we will ask our candidates another question. This question is focused more on family and community engagement. Earlier, it was mentioned that much of the progress that LAUSD has made in the last 25 years is largely due to the activism of parents and community members, calling for more resources, tailored services, and access to a quality public education for students from our communities. If elected, how will you work with community groups like ours? And how do you plan on authentically engaging parents as partners? And we're going to start with Carla.
Yes, thank you. And just to let you know that the district sent us, our school, $300 for parent engagement. That's how much they value parent engagement. Yes, for sure. I'm not going to keep my doors open for you. I'm going to come to you because I truly believe that your voice is very important. I do trainings with my parents, at least 4 different trainings at different hours of the time so that they can understand the budget process, so that when we finally sit down to talk about the budget, they can give input, they can give insight. And yesterday I had a meeting with parents about Title I, and a parent said, hey, I've heard Title I over and over again, and I never understood it until now because you finally explained it to me. That's how much I value parents. I take my time, and I'm going to continue coming back to your organization, to all the parent organizations, and to other organizations. And I'm going to hold not just town hall meetings, but listening sessions throughout the district because I want to know what's going on in the school sites. I want to catch those moments when things are not being implemented or when there's some bullying going around of either parents or parents are being pushed out of the office because they're asking way too many questions. I want to make sure that I am engaged with all parents. I'm a parent. And I wish I could be at my daughter's school all the time, and I can't. In fact, the meetings are never at a time when I can attend. I want to make sure that we change that. So that's my commitment to parent engagement, and that's why I'm going to work with you all.
Thank you. Victoria?
I've always been a parent advocate, and every school that I've ever worked, we've always organized events for the parents. Thanksgiving, we had a deep fried turkey event. We had it every year. The parents were involved, the teachers. We fed the kids, we fed the community. We invited everybody to come. Parents have to feel welcome. And I think one of the biggest problems is that parents don't feel welcome at the schools. I watch them at State Elementary right next to my house because I live close to State. That's where my kids went. And you see the parents looking through the fence. Parents care. They want to be invited in, but they just look through the fence. When I go to any of the schools, parents say, pues no nos quieren ahí sometimes. ¿Por qué? Because I see what's going on. And what they're going on is not good. Parents have to see and be able to feel comfortable that the food that the kids are being served is not healthy, and some of the kids are throwing all the food away and the trash cans all the way to the top because the food is not healthy. Parents have to be aware that we have to provide a welcoming environment, not just during the planning period for the budget, but every single day, not just coffee or pan dulce with the principal once a month. It should be a welcoming environment every day. When my parents came to my school at Simon Rodia and all the other schools that I ever worked, I said, come right in, pase señora. And then I would offer them water. I would welcome them. I would talk to them for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour and a half, whatever long they wanted to talk. They have to be part of the family, and you have to welcome them. And I think a lot of our parents have been pushed away because they see them as not partners, but people snooping around and see what's wrong with the school.
Thank you. Graciela?
Yeah, thank you for that awesome question. I really think it's crucial that our parents are part of the solution. And when I talk about having fully funded schools, I want to make sure that all our schools have a fully funded parent and community center. So the new schools that were built were actually built with a parent and community center, yet they're not funded. So the schools do everything that they can to try to have a welcoming environment for parents, yet they don't have the funding to be able to help parents come in and being able to have that great customer service at the door when parents come in and say, how can I help you? This school is part of your school. Instead, they're blocked off at the door. So as a school board member, I want to make sure to be available to parents and meet them where they are. So for example, one thing that we did learn regarding COVID is that some of our parents are able to take a lunch break and able to get on a Zoom like at 12 o'clock. So that's an opportunity for them to engage with the board member. I want to have quarterly town hall meetings where we make sure that we have parent input on what's going on in their schools. The other thing I want to do is make sure that we have a parent committee where we have parents from particular areas, because Board District 5 is huge, and having 3 different committees to ensure that we have a parent committee in each group that I'm able to meet with on a quarterly basis. and make sure that they are part of the solutions within LAUSD. And the other part is that we have organizations like Innovate and ABC that have been involved with parents within our communities for many, many years. So it's about partnering up with these organizations and making sure that we're working together to make changes within our district. Thank you.
Thank you. Fidencio?
Community and parent involvement is my #1 priority. Someone asked me, what do you want to achieve within your first 60 days? And part of that is bringing a resolution before the board saying we need to reimagine parent involvement. Our parents have been pushed off campus since COVID and they haven't been welcomed back. A lot of our schools, the big complaints that they come to me with is that we used to be able to come onto campus and drop our kids off, no longer. And that's not okay. It's their school just as much as it's the school of their children, and parents have a right to be on campus every single day. So I'm going to make sure, #1, that I have staff members that are visiting all the schools, going to all the meetings, and I will be as many of the meetings as I can at the actual school sites. We want to make sure that everything that's given to parents is accessible and comprehensible. I've been at schools where they were not providing information to Spanish-speaking parents in Spanish, and that's not okay. I've been at schools where principals have said, I don't want parents on my campus as volunteers unless they speak English. That's not okay. I don't want parents on my campus as supervising kids. What's wrong with having parents supervising kids? If we need that extra help, then parents should be there. So we need to streamline the volunteer process. We need to make sure that our parents are welcomed at all of our campuses. I personally will have an open door policy. I will give my phone number to everyone, and I would love to talk and hear, because at the end of the day, parents are our eyes and ears, and we are elected by the community to serve the community. So we need to be in touch with them constantly, and we need to be in touch in a way that makes sense for parents.
Thank you. And thank you to all the audience who's been submitting questions. I want to ask a question from our audience participants. So this question comes was created by Cesar Lopez. Every year, there are students who drop out, are MIA, or are simply not served. Meanwhile, the options program has been gutted. How would you advocate for the most vulnerable students within the district? And we're going to start with Fidencio.
Yes, dropping out and losing students is something that is not acceptable. And we have wonderful PSA counselors that go out there and find the students. But when we find the students, we need to figure out what works for them individually. Programs like options and other things that are out there, maybe it's, City of Angels, maybe it's an online virtual academy. We need to make certain that we're tailoring what our students need so that they're able to be successful. And it's different for every student. So by no means should we cut out options, but instead we should make certain that every child, every young adult is able to learn in the environment that works best for them. I would say that continuation schools are great, but working out of packets is not necessarily something that's going to help students prepare for their future. We need to look at the curriculum in these special settings, like, community schools, community day schools, adult education, just everything, and make sure that students have that information so that they and their parents can decide what's going to work best for them. But again, it's about tailoring. It's about tailoring and individualizing programs so that every student is served. Our special education students, we need to make certain that they have their needs met, as long as we can provide for them. So I just think it's about making sure that we hold on to programs that serve all of our kids.
Thank you. Carla.
Research shows that attendance and dropout rates are impacted by how students feel at the school. So what folks have been sharing about welcoming environments, that is what matters. And in fact, it's in preschool. When a student is chronically absent in preschool, that determines their absenteeism as they get older. And so I think that, I work at a school where there's chronic absenteeism. And we do these home visits with our students. And what we find out is that there are so many needs that are not about learning to read or write or engaging in academic conversations. It's real life needs, like you are scared that you're going to lose your place, or you need to find a place, or you are hungry, or your mom has cancer and doesn't have a way to get medical help. So we need to see our students again. I'm going to say it holistically. And I think that any student who is dropping out, we need to have meetings with families and find out how can our district help them? How do we fill that gap beyond the academic? And we are the second largest district, and we need to make sure that we are filling that gap. We're not just doing home visits, telling them to come to school, but we come with solutions and supports. And that's what I want to implement at our district.
Thank you. Victoria?
You know, I worked since 2007 in option schools. I worked at a community day school named Johnson CDS on Avalon 54th between San Pedro. And I went from having, we went as a team, from having 73 kids to going to Hollywood, which became Richard Alonso. And when I left there, we had 250 students, 13 teachers, a psychiatric social worker. I went to Viewpark, we had 43 students. And by the time I left, 5 years later, we had 5 teachers, 135 kids. The most vulnerable kids need love, respect, and skills. We don't use packets. We use the same curriculum, but better than the traditional schools, because if we were to use the same one, they're going to fail again. When I left Simon Rodia, we had 100 kids that were enrolled. And when I left, we had 250, 10 teachers. And District 5, we had the highest graduation rate every single summer. 32 kids, 36 kids, and we graduated over 120 kids. They were the kids that were discarded from other schools, yet they needed to have discipline, tough love, and hope. And that's one of the things that we have to have in the district. We are failing students because we label them as failures, as broken kids, and send them to continuation schools. We don't have the resources, but we have the heart. And I think we have to understand those individuals are going to college, are succeeding because they found a home with us. They felt comfortable in the option setting. So no, they're not discarded, and we don't use packets. We haven't used it for 20 years.
Thank you, Victoria. Graciela?
So I have a background in people services and attendance for the past 17 years, breaking down those barriers that are impeding children from being successful. Till this day, I have not met one student who has dropped out of high school that didn't start with an attendance problem. And part of the attendance issues is a lot of other social emotional issues that are occurring. So option schools work for students because it fits their needs. Many of our students need to work. They get to high school and now they become the breadwinner at home. One student came to me, he didn't have an attendance issue, he wanted to drop out of school, and I was able to enroll him in an option school where he was able to work 8 hours and be able to finish his high school diploma. So I will continue to advocate for option schools, but not just option schools, also having partnerships and having apprenticeship programs, making sure that we're working with our trades, making sure that we're working with our local unions, making sure that we're working with our local community colleges and universities so that we have pathways for our students. The thing is that students need to be excited about going to school. And when life is happening and their mental health needs aren't being serviced and the district is talking about cutting mental health needs, we need to make sure that those services are not cut at all. And then the other piece is linking them to community resources. For example, we have hub cities within the Southeast communities, which is a workforce development center. We've been able to connect high school students to the workforce development centers where their needs are met now simultaneously. They go to school and they get a job. Thank you.
Thank you all for your thoughtful responses to our audience questions. Our next question is a mesh from a few questions that were raised. We know that advancing district decisions requires working with other members of the board, some whom you may not always align politically. How would you work with other board members to focus on the areas you're talking about today? And we're going to start with Graciela.
So I've been an elected official for the past 9 years. And one thing that I've seen is this new set of elected officials within communities and working hand in hand to be able to make a decision. Sometimes you have to agree to disagree. But one of the biggest things that you need to do as an elected official is making sure that you are advocating for your community and you have all the information in front of you to provide that to your colleagues. So I am committed to working with every single board member on that school board to be able to continue to advocate for my communities. The other piece too is that it takes a lot of work to be able to connect with county supervisors and City of Los Angeles officials. And within the Southeast, we've been able to create a coalition, particularly around COVID when our region wasn't receiving any resources and we needed to come together as a whole region to be able to obtain resources from the state. So I've been able to do that for the past 9 years, and that's the type of skills that I'm going to bring to the school board to make sure that I'm working with every single one of my colleagues on that school board.
Thank you so much. Fidencio?
Yes, thank you for that question. Along with Graciela, I was elected in the same election cycle that she was, and I've served on the Bell City Council since 2015, always making certain that, as a council, we work together to achieve the most for our community. Like Graciela mentioned, the region came together in response to COVID, and we were able to run the longest running COVID testing center in the city of Bell. We hosted it. We also hosted the Cella Vaccination Center in the city of Bell. And that is really working together on our council and beyond our council with people in the area. Now, earlier, a lot of people have talked about the district's priorities. At the end of the day, that's a cop-out. It's the board's priorities. And we need to always work together to hold the superintendent accountable. I think one of the things we haven't talked about is the superintendent. And I don't think he's doing a great job. At the end of the day, there are many things that could be done differently, many situations where the board hasn't been listened to. When the superintendent came in, he said, there's a better way to govern than to do it by resolution. And he talked the board members into reducing the number of resolutions that they put forth. That's not okay. Reducing the number of resolutions is quieting the voice of the community. So as board members, we need to work together to make certain that our communities are served for. And it's true, we're not always going to agree, but we always have to have the community's best interests in our hearts and in our minds.
Thank you, Fidencio. Carla?
I wasn't even on mute. I've worked, like I said earlier, I've been doing this organizing work as a teacher. Like that was my extracurricular activity as well as raising my kids. And so I have always worked with people of different thoughts and beliefs for one cause, just like I worked with parents to bring these resources to the different schools or to create spaces for parents to have a voice in decision-making processes at the school. But I've also been in my union. I was a board member and I was a North Area chair for 3 years. And as such, I've had to work with diverse beliefs and come together. And, if you've ever had to try to get 100 schools to walk out on strike in the rain to give up their pay, I was able to do that along with my other board of directors to convince them about the need to sacrifice this and the necessity for our students. So I've been able to do that. But also in this campaign, I reached out to all board members. Well, not all, most of them. There's only like maybe one I haven't reached out to. And, I've already found some common ground. Yeah, we don't agree on everything, but I have found some common ground and even strategized a little bit, thought about, what can we do with this? I believe in that. And that's how we're going to be able to make changes.
Thank you. Victorio?
I think, but to me, it's very important is I would hold their feet to the fire. I would actually have to focus on student needs. And if the student needs are not being met, I'm not negotiating with them. This is not a negotiable thing. We have negotiated for so long the quality of education that all we have is a failing system. The superintendent was hired by the 7 of them. The superintendent was given the power to decide on the future of almost 500,000 students. And no one has held him accountable, even though he's making mistakes. I'm sorry, I would hold him accountable. When he was talking about that the kids go and get fed at our school, and if they weren't fed, they would starve. I made a little TikTok and said, that is unacceptable. You owe us an apology. The food is not that great. I think it's about holding people accountable. I'm sure that I can find 3 or 4 more people that would focus on student needs, parent engagement, stop fulfilling something or stop breaking rules and promises that we make to our kids. We have to get them ready to be career and college prepared by the time they get out of high school. They have to have quality education, be prepared for our world. So as a board member, I would work with everyone because I'm a team builder, but I would definitely hold them accountable for the lack of progress that our kids have received for the last 70 or 80 years. Yes.
Thank you so much. And thank you to the students, parents, and the audience. We really appreciate not only your questions, but also your engagement. Even though it is a virtual room, right? We are very excited to, just see how much engagement our community has. We do have time for one final question, and we'd like to talk about your satisfaction with Superintendent Carvalho. The school board has three main jobs. One is to set district policy. 2, approves LAUSD's 10 billion annual operating budget, and 3, hires, evaluates, and if necessary, fires the superintendent. Our current superintendent, Alberto Carvalho, has been serving LAUSD as a superintendent for the past 2 years. The question is, how would you grade the superintendent's performance? And the scale is A through F. How would you work with the superintendent to approve his performance? And we're gonna start with you, Victoria.
I would give him a D-, and I would ask him to take the Winter Academy, see if he can improve it to a C. I think what happens is he's missing the point of having to provide services for the community. I think they're more important in taking pictures with people than following through with the promises. I saw the strategic plan, and it's too general, not specific enough, and they just do broad strokes without holding anyone accountable. I think currently he's overpaid. And I can understand why Mr. Gallardo is frustrated, because he's worked closer than most of us with him, because he does work with the board member. But the question is, if he's not doing a good job, why do we continue to pay him day in and day out? We need to move him. We had better individuals that were interviewed and we're not given the job. So I don't think that he's doing a bad job because he wants to. I think he's doing a bad job because he doesn't understand what our district is about. There are a lot of people that haven't presented to him perhaps the real picture. Parents have met with him. He's promised things, but the people below him are not coming through with the promises that the superintendent is making. So what I would do, I would definitely replace him if I were to get elected. I would look for a replacement.
Thank you. Graciela?
Thank you. So as an elected official, I have to tell you that board members are purview to more information than what's out there in the public. So I can't tell you exactly how I would grade Superintendent Carvalho because I haven't worked with him as a board member. But what I can say is that one thing that I would do to make sure that he is in tune with our schools is get my colleagues on the school board to be in tune on what's happening in our schools and what's happening in our district. The reality is that it takes 4 board members to make a decision on that school board. And the reality is that the superintendent makes decisions based on the direction of the board members. So we need to make sure as board members that we are completely in tune. And I believe that many of our board members have not been in tune with what's really going on in our district and what's really happening in our schools. So I want to make sure that every board member is in tune with the needs of our students, the needs of our parents, and the needs of our communities in order to be able to hold our superintendent accountable to the needs of our students and our parents and communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Graciela. Fidencio?
I would give him a C-, and part of the reason is that he's made multiple blunders. And I understand that when you first hire a superintendent, you have to give them time to kind of see, how things are going. But, I've already seen multiple mistakes from acceleration days, primary promise, the calendar, even the way he handled the strike. I think that part of his issue is that he is unwilling to work with partners, specifically labor partners. And I think that's where he messes up. The calendar is a great example of that. There was a survey that was put out and the public, teachers, all the stakeholders said overwhelmingly that they wanted to keep a 3-week winter break. And then right after the strike happens, somehow he convinced the board into deciding unanimously to change it to a 2-week break, which is not what the public, was asking for, which is not what parents and staff members and the different stakeholders were asking for. So to me, that is not okay. I mean, I'm glad that the different labor organizations got together and pushed back and we got the 3 weeks back. But another issue is he's too conservative with the reserves. There's a lot of money that's in the reserves that could be used. I think that's another issue. We need someone who is going to be more responsive to our communities, someone that can look beyond like his individual desires to lead the district. So I would give him a C-.
Thank you. Carla?
I hate giving grades. I really do, because I don't think it tells the whole story. And I think that if you're forcing me to give him a grade, I would give him a D. I don't like fails. But I'm going to tell you, the thing about Superintendent Carvalho is that he's very autocratic. He makes the decisions without any input from any stakeholders. And many of the things that were already mentioned by the folks here, but the last thing that really put him in my book to a D is the way he handled this budget. He just kept insinuating that there were going to be budget cuts, but not at any point did he come and ask stakeholders, what are your priorities? What is it that you want for our district? This is what we have. What are your dreams and hopes and visions for our district? Not once. And neither did the board members. The board members could have done that on their own. They could have held town hall meetings back in the fall to get stakeholder input, but they didn't. Like Mr. Gutierrez said, they did not hold him accountable, and he's not transparent. He does not give out all the information. Perhaps the board members have it behind closed doors, but certainly the stakeholders do not have all the information all the time, and he misses deadlines all the time. And he does not follow through on all these resolutions that are before him. So yes, he gets a D because of that.
Thank you. And thank you so much for everybody's engagement. We are now moving to candidates' closing remarks. Each of candidate will have 2 minutes to provide closing remarks. This round will begin with Graciela.
Thank you, everyone. I want to start off by thanking all the community partners that put this on today and all the parents and community members that are on the Zoom. I know that it's different times, so Zoom works. I love in person, but I have to tell you that running for this school board seat puts my passion for education and my passion for community work and combines it into one. I want to make sure that we have a voice on the school board that understands parent needs, that understands community needs, that understands student needs. I believe that my experience allows me to provide that voice to the school board. One of the things that I have to tell you is that we can't change our educational system unless we're working together. We're working in collaboration, and we're going to need the community and the parents and our students to be able to make a difference. I want to make sure that all our students are college and career ready. And the thing is that we have this equity issue that we continue to talk about, but what are we going to do about it? The thing is that we can create all the policies in the world, but it doesn't matter unless we actually act on it. I want to make sure that I continue to be that voice for our communities, but also to make sure that our students are reaching their goals and going to the colleges of their dreams and starting the careers of their dreams, which is why we need partnerships with apprenticeship programs and unions and junior colleges and Cal States and UCs and private schools. The reality is that we are the second largest school district in the country. There is no reason why we should have any type of budget deficit. The state of California isn't receiving the amount of money that they should be receiving from the federal government. As a board member, I'll make sure that I continue to advocate for LAUSD students and parents, not only with the state, but with the county, with local government, and with the federal government. Thank you so much for being involved in this process, and please don't forget to come out and vote March 5th. Thank you.
Thank you. Victorio?
Buenas noches y gracias por estar con nosotros. One of the things that got me motivated to run is because I see a system that is failing our students, a system that is neglectful to receive any input from our parents, a system that has broken promises and has done it for over 70 years. I feel that I'm the only individual that is running that did not ask for any donation because I do not want to be tied to any union. I support every single union that we have, and I walked in '89. I believe that the unions are essential and they're the backbones of our educational system. But you can't make decisions that somebody else is telling you how to think. I'm an independent thinker. I'm a student advocate. I believe in the holistic approach. We have to have nice, clean places for every student and parent when they come in, a welcoming environment for the parents. I've always done that wherever I work. I'm an individual that truly cares about student progress and following their dream and developing the skills. Our system is failing to provide the basic reading, writing, arithmetic, communication, and the mental health. A lot of broken promises. It sounds great to say we're going to do it, but they haven't done it yet. We need students that have a voice at the Board of Education, not unions representing their needs there. I want to make sure we understand that our parents are hardworking individuals and need the respect and the opportunity to meet with our board members, not quarterly, weekly. Anytime they want to call and have a meeting, I'll be there for you. I'm accessible. I'm the only person that does not have to worry about being employed. I am a retired teacher, and I was a teacher for over 37 years. I have the experience. I know how to help our community. I am community. I've lived in Southgate almost all my life. And at 64, I'm a proud and energetic person, and I know I can make a difference, but I need your vote. I can't do it alone. This is a team effort. Gracias y que pasen buenas noches.
Thank you. Carla?
Yes. So, I jumped into this race inspired by my students, my colleagues, and my daughter. My daughter is a strong advocate also for student voice. She's a strong advocate for safe schools and safe passages. She's a strong advocate for mental health. Those are all the things that I want for all of our students. And so that's why I jumped into this race. And I want to continue doing this work, the work that I've been doing on the ground throughout my career. I want to do that work at the school board. I want to make sure that the most vulnerable students are centered, that their voices are heard, and that their parents' voices are heard and are present at that school board. I want to make sure that we secure special education funding and that we give all the training that we need for our teachers who teach students with disabilities, and that their class sizes are low and that they don't have all these multiple grades in one class like they do right now. I want to make sure that we continue to secure funding for them and that we continue to look at reforms that will center students with disabilities. I want to make sure that we continue expanding community schools, for they are the hub of a community. And I'm telling you, they are the most democratic and transparent ways of running a school. And I also want to continue funding the Black Student Achievement Plan, which is a much needed and long awaited investment in our Black youth. I want to create a vision for real safety that includes families and students and community organizations and community-based safety plans. I want to make sure that that voice is in there when we're creating these things. So I am the only parent who is in this race, and I am the only current teacher in this race. Thank you.
Fidencio.
I want to thank everyone for the opportunity to be here with you all. I want to thank the parents and all the sponsors of this event. You're all going to make a very important decision on March 5th. And I think when you make that decision, you need to take a close look at who the different candidates are. By all means, look at our records, look at our background. The way we do that in modern age is look at our Facebook and Instagram feeds and see everything that we've done in our community consistently for years. I'm proud of all of my achievements as a teacher. At the end of the day, I think the most critical work happens in the classroom. And that's why I came out of the classroom to learn more about LAUSD so that I could in turn make decisions that impact what happens in our classrooms every day. I think it's so important that we improve student learning by reducing class size and making certain that all of our schools are fully staffed. I think it's important that we improve learning conditions by making certain that our schools are safer, cleaner, and greener. I think it's important that we improve outcomes for our communities of color by investing in these community schools, because that's the difference. It's every single one of our children, every single student from K through 12, they deserve to learn in safe and affirming learning environments. You're gonna make a big decision, like I said, on March 5th. I can only tell you that I am the independent candidate. I'm not tied to any special interest. There's no independent expenditure, putting out any pieces for me. It's a complete grassroots campaign, and that makes me feel so proud because we have the support of community members throughout all of Board District 5. People that are volunteering their time. Most of my staff, are people that are volunteering, and we're keeping it positive. All of our messaging is positive. It's just about me and my merits and why I deserve to be elected to the school board in March. At the end of the day, it's a huge decision. We want to make sure it's the right decision. We want a committed educator serving us on the LAUSD school board.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight for this very important conversation. We're deeply appreciative of the 4 candidates who made time to be with us this evening. And as we've heard this evening, LAUSD is responsible for serving 420,000 students, the majority of whom are children needing extra resources, support, and a loving learning environment. There's a lot of weight on the shoulders of LAUSD's leadership, from the superintendent and board down to school principals and school staff, to work with community and implement the best solutions possible. We know that the job is not easy, but we ask that if elected, you open the door to community partners, parents, caregivers, and students when making funding and policy decisions. To our audience, please remember to vote. You should have received your mail-in ballot. You may return those ASAP by dropping off your completed ballot at any ballot drop box. Remember, you don't have to do it within your own community. It can be across anywhere in LA County. Please remember they must be postmarked by 8 p.m. on election night, Tuesday, March 5th. There are also 400 plus convenient, secure ballot drop box locations open and available to voters throughout the county. You may also vote at the nearest LA County voting center near you. You may find those online on the LA County Registrar's page at lavote.gov. Thank you for all your spending your evening with us. I will now pass it to Dalia Velasco from ABCs for some final words. Thank you.
Thank you, Wilma. Wow, what an incredible evening. A huge shout out to the phenomenal Dr. Wilma Franco. Your seamless navigation through tonight's discussion has been nothing short of incredible. Consider yourself showered with virtual flowers. You've earned every petal. And I also want to give a massive thank you to each and every one of you who joined us. Your presence has added so much energy to this forum, and we're genuinely grateful for your participation. And finally, candidates, your candor and thoughtful responses have been very helpful and insightful. We hope that everyone tuning in is leaving with lots of new insights. Virtual high fives all around to everyone who participated tonight. If tonight left you wanting more, and we really hope it did, get ready because the excitement doesn't stop here. Our final forum awaits us. So save the date for next week as we have Board District 7's Candidate Forum. It'll be on Tuesday, February 27th, same time, 6 to 8 p.m. on Zoom. So make sure to mark your calendars because you won't want to miss that. And a friendly reminder, if you happen to miss our first forum of Board District 1, no worries, head over to YouTube. You can catch what Board District 1 candidates had to say. It's lots of great perspectives, more thought-provoking ideas, and that link will be in the chat. And finally, just thank you for being a part of this incredible journey with us. Your enthusiasm fuels our passion for fostering these vital discussions. Good night, everyone. We can't wait to see you again at our next forum, and let's keep the momentum going.
Yep.